The skeletons are put back into our closets and the tombstones are filed away for yet another year, which means it's time to completely disrespect the turkey and hop right into anxiety mode as a crafter, prepping for craft fairs. It's time for the holidays. Now, ornaments are pretty big sellers, and I've done videos already on how we can do that with laser cutters and laser engraving to offer a personalized touch. But what if you want something a little softer? Well, that's where machine embroidery comes into play. Grrr, arg! Now, these I'm going to show you at a different time. These are also done with machine embroidery. However, in today's video, I'm going to show you how to do one that looks like it's been cross-stitched or just hand embroidered, because I can do neither of those due to my extreme lack of patience. Now, if we take a quick gander at the design that we're going to be using for this project, you can see that I used a running script for the text. The reason that I did that is because I wanted to have a natural hand-stitched look without torturing myself for hours. It also needed to look really clean when stitched out in a small format, such as this 2.5 by 2.5 inch design. That's because the smaller the text, the lighter weight thread you're going to need in order to stitch it out cleanly. All right, with that, let's hop into all of the materials and supplies that you're going to need for this project. You're going to need an embroidery hoop. I do advise that you use one slightly smaller than mine. I decided to use my magnetic hoop because I'm lazy. Also, you need stabilizer. You can use cutaway or tearaway. This depends, again, on your fabric. My fabric is fairly loosely woven because it's more of a burlap type of texture, so I decided to go with cutaway. Then, of course, you need your fabric. I chose this really natural linen, very, very natural looking loose weave, but it's got some heft to it. So I wanted to use something like this so it would fray nicely on the edges and give it a little bit of a fringe. So for the actual hoop part, for the ornament that is going to hold the faux embroidery, we have these tiny little 3-inch embroidery hoops that I can buy at bulk from Amazon. Again, I'll put the links to everything that I've purchased down below. Now, unless you're a masochist, you're going to need an embroidery machine to finish this project. I'm going to be using my Ricoma MT-1501. As the name implies, it is a 15 needle embroidery machine. It comes with the stand, 2 of each hoop, and all of the tools you could ever want or need. This also includes the hat hoop. I think it bears mentioning that 15 needles might be a little bit too much for y'all, and you may have looked at that clip of my machine and gone, wow, that's really commercial looking. But they actually carry some very beginner-friendly machines, so feel free to check the links in the description below if you want to go check that out and ask for your quote. Now that we're certain we have everything ready to go, we can start hooping our work. Now I'm going to be using my Mighty hoop. It is a 5.5 inch, and I know later in the video I will call this out again, but I think it bears repeating that I have chosen poorly on the size. I could have gone definitely a size smaller, or you could also do several at a time if you want to do things in bulk. The reason I'm not doing things in bulk for this video is because I want to keep it very simple for those who may not understand how to do that just yet. So I have what would be considered the interior of the hoop sitting here. I have separated. This would be considered the exterior if you have a spring hoop. So you'll take the interior ring and you're going to put down your stabilizer, and then you're going to set your fabric on top of the stabilizer. Now for me, with this particular setup, I like to use the little guide that was provided to me. I'm going to put that in here, and this holds everything kind of taut while you put the hoop on. Otherwise, sometimes the Mighty hoops or magnetic hoops in general can kind of like pull and tug, and you're like, ah, and you can't get that nice drum tautness on the top. So I use the little binding guide to hold that in place. Then for those of you who are not using a magnetic hoop, all you're going to need to do is gently push down. For me, I just go YOLO! Of course, remembering to take the little backing guide out because I am notorious for forgetting that I need to remove this before putting this onto the machine. Speaking of which, let's put it on the machine and let that design stitch out. Awesome! Now that we finished the embroidery, we can remove it from the hoop and put it into another hoop. So I'm just going to take the work and I'm going to gently remove it. And remember, I am using a mighty hoop which has magnets, so I'm going to very carefully move that off to the side. You don't want to accidentally snap yourself. And then I'm just going to take the work away from the hoop and again, fingers away, gently snap that, gently. And here we have our son of a nutcracker embroidery piece. Now, I did overcompensate for the size. Obviously, there's a lot of wasted fabric here. I probably should have used a smaller hoop, but that point aside, this does give me extra room to make sure I don't mess up the placement. Though really, I probably should have used one of the smaller hoops that comes with the machine and is specifically meant for very small things like baby onesies. I'm going to start by cleaning up the work. I only have one little piece to snip off, which is basically off of the yellow on the hat, and then of course in the back. So there's a couple of different things that you can do with the back if you want. You can just go ahead and clean it up to the best of your abilities like this with the snipping of any little excess threads, or you can take some of this extra fabric here and put it along the back side. Now, once I have everything cleaned up, I'm going to take the hoop and I'm going to put it centered over the design. I'm going to take a disappearing ink pen and I'm going to basically mark about an inch outside of that outer ring to give myself plenty of buffer. You can trim it away after the fact if you want, or you can leave it intact and fringe the outside. All right, now I'm going to grab some sharp scissors and I'm going to cut out along the little line that I created here. Sometimes I can't talk while I'm also cutting. It's very weird. I can only do one thing at a time. I'm going to cut that circle out. And again, doesn't have to be precise. Sometimes people prefer to have a square shape too. You can go with that if you like. Okay, so there's all that extra, and I will pay penance to the landfill gods some other time. Not tonight. All right, and now if you want, you can trim away the backing fabric like this. And ideally, nobody would be looking at the back, but again, it's an ornament. You just never know. If you want, you can actually use tearaway. I just felt like tearaway might not have worked as well with the particular kind of fabric that I had since the weave was so loose. Now, you see that there's not really a whole heck of a lot back here. You take some smaller snips and get in here. But what I could do if I want is take some of this excess like that. And if I have some fabric glue, then I can just put that on top. Now this will probably just hoop right on in there, but if I really wanted to, I would just use some fabric glue and get that kind of fused in. For me, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna baste it down with a little bit of basting spray. You can get this in any section of a craft store or online. I'm just gonna put that down to hold it while I'm hooping it, because the hoop is going to catch it in the corners and it'll never get seen. Ta-da! Now we're gonna flip the work over and we're going to open up our little hoop here. The kinds of hoops that I have are just bamboo hoops with a little screw on the top. So I am doing everything in my power to open it up and give me some wiggle room so that I can hoop it. There we go. Okay, so it seems loose enough. We'll find out. Now I'm going to put the inner ring down and I'm going to put the design in here centered. Again, like, get it the best that you can and deeply pray. All right, and then we're going to just slide the hoop over like that. We've got it in place. You can see it caught the edges of the little backing piece. So yay me, I didn't exactly waste it. Okay, I did, but you know, whatever. And then we're gonna screw it tight, and if you're like me and you're paranoid, you can grab a screwdriver. I really don't have a screwdriver here with me, but I will tighten that up off camera, and you can hold me liable for that later. Now technically, you could call this project pretty much done, but what's an ornament without being able to hang the darn thing up? So that's why I have some twine, ribbon, and one of these tiny little wooden beads that hung all over my mom's car when I was growing up. If you notice on the outer hoop, just under the screw, you can actually loop something around the screw there, so that's where we're going to put the twine. So I'm going to take the twine, I'm going to have it folded in half with the raw ends extended out here, and then of course the loop at the bottom. We're going to take the raw ends and we're going to feed them under the screw and up. But before we pull everything through, we're going to take this loop, we're going to shove our fingers through it, and we're going to grab those raw ends and pull them through. And then we're going to keep pulling, 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 boop, and there you go. That's how you do the loop. Now we're going to add the wooden bead, because reasons. So the point of the bead is to help give it a little bit more weight and also make it look kind of cute. So we're going to take the ends here, and you'll know if you're using twine versus ribbon, you're going to have like all these ends that are kind of fraying. So I'm going to twist it just a bit, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some scissors. I'm just going to take these snips here, and I'm going to cut at an angle, like a 45-degree angle, just like that. And I'm going to just keep, you know, shaving it down like it's a yak, and then press on it real hard, and then it'll be angled correctly enough to where I can basically take the bead and wiggle to get those through. And then we're going to take that and we're going to pull that down just like that. And if you want, you could actually have it hang up higher like this and basically tie off. So we can do this if you want and tie that off at the very, very, very top. But of course, since I didn't tie it off before putting that on, it's going to sink to the bottom anyway, so YOLO. So we're going to put that down there, and we're going to trim at an angle. There we go. Now this is twine. It's not going to really fall apart like right here, so you don't have to worry about that. The problem is we can still see the screw. So that's why I suggest getting ribbon. I have this really cute gingham ribbon, and I'm going to use that to create a bow. Haha, tape. Now for this part, you can fast forward through if you know how to do a bow. I'm actually going to go through the steps because one day I might absolutely forget what I did, and I use YouTube to document everything I forget. All right, we're getting real because the crappy hot glue gun is out. I call it that because it was $2 and it leaks. Anyway, so to do this step, we're basically going to take a little bit of our ribbon, and we're going to figure out about how much we need to give it that ribbon look, that nice look. But I can't tie to help myself, so I'm going to have to kind of cheat a little. So to cheat a little, we're going to just do a little loop here, figure out about how big we want it to look. I think about like that. You don't want it to be too excessive or it's basically going to dominate or cover up the design. So we're just going to kind of eyeball it. I think about like that will be good. So we're going to take this and just make sure that they are even and cut just like that. Now, I'm just going to slide that out of the way because I don't want to accidentally burn myself or lose my fingertips. So we're going to lay this out and we're going to do that kind of crosswise loop again, just like so, what I was doing before. And the thing is, you don't want to lay them toward the center or it'll lay flat and it'll look really bad. So we're going to do like this and this. Now, if you want, at this point, you could actually sew this, or you could take some fishing line, wire, or what have you to kind of get it to stay fluff like that. I'm actually going to just take a little bit of jewelry twine. Jewelry twine? Jewelry. Okay, now that I found my jewelry twine, God, English. I'm just going to take a little bit of the glue because I can't get, you can watch me kind of fuss with it. I can't get it to stay in one place to save my life. So I'm going to fold it in half just so I know about where the center is going to be. And I'm just going to put a tiny, tiny dot in here of glue. And this is literally just to hold something in place while I'm working with it. So I'm going to get a little bit here like that. Boop. Whoop. No bueno. And then a little bit more here like that. Don't need a lot, just enough to kind of hold things in place. And don't worry if the tails are uneven or look funky because you're going to snip them in the end to give them shape. That's mostly so they don't unravel at the bottom. Now I'm going to take a little bit of this twine. Now, this is actually for jewelry. There, I said it correctly that time. Jewelry. You can also use fishing line if you rather, or wire. So I'm just going to take a little bit of this and I'll cut it after the fact. Let's do that. So I'm going to go over the front and to the back. And I'm not going to really tie it down yet, but I'm going to pull. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap it around a couple of times with the loose end. Just like so. And wrap it, wrap it, wrap it. I know it's clear and it's probably really hard to see on the camera, but trust me, there's wire here. Probably should have done some Halloween stuff with it, but it's whatever. Okay, and I'm gonna tie it off, but not just once, but twice. So if you're using wire, it's pretty easy. You just need to twist it so it's not gonna unravel, but this stuff, it tends to unravel if you don't do a double knot. So I've double knotted it and I'm going to trim everything now and I'm done with the wire. And you're like, well, you know, kittens, that looks pretty. Yeah, that's not the best. That's not the best bow. But what we're going to do now is create a little bit of a loop over it. So then you're going to take another smaller piece, just enough to cover it. Like that. See, this tiny little bit, all I need is what, like about 1.5 inches or so. Wow, I really nailed that. And I'm going to put it a little dot. Well, let's figure out, I want this to be the front. I think this looks better. It's not even, but you know what? It makes it even more special for me. Cool, so we'll put it right there. Woo! Then I'm going to lay this down, center on top of it, and get rid of all the little glue wispies that are in the way. Okay, so we have it sitting right there in the front. Now we're going to flip it over to the back. And I'm going to put a little bit in the center. like that. And I'm going to take that raw end and I'm going to fold it over like that. Put a little bit more glue down, just a little bit. And if you want, you can use tweezers for this to be a little safer. For me, I've been burned so much by hot glue at this stage in my life that I don't even feel it anymore. And then you had the world's ugliest bow. I will state for the record, I did warn you, and I never claimed to be very good at making bows. Okay, now we can grab our ornament here, and I'm going to put the glue right over here. And I'm going to just have it sit right there on top, and you'll see how it's going to very nicely cover up the hardware, which at this point, by the way, I have already taken a small screwdriver and I've tightened this so it's not going to fall apart on me or anybody else for that matter. And I'm going to generously glop the glue right over that. And I'm going to press this in. Get rid of all the thread, don't want any extra thread in there. And just put that right on top and you can press and see. I'm going to be safe and I'm going to press with my tweezers. Wonderbar. Okay, and the little wooden bead. Now, to kind of make things look real nice, what you're going to want to do is figure out about how long you want these guys to be, because if you, as you can see, they're pretty much hiding the design. So we really do not want it to do that. So I'm going to clip these at an angle. And I do it at an angle just like we would for any kind of fabric or item that we are making with fabric that is woven, because it will be on the bias and it will stop the unraveling. Now, if you don't really feel confident in that claim, you can always take some fray check or fabric glue and dab it along the ends. So actually, let's just do that. I'll take a little bit of that fray check and I'm just going to go right there and do it away from the design. I got it a little bit on the edge there, but that's all right, because I'm going to show you what to do next to make this look really cool. Now, for this final step, what we're going to do is we're going to rough up the edges of that burlap fabric and cause it to fray. That's going to give it a really cool look, and it's going to be totally fine because it's trapped inside the little embroidery hoop. Okay, for this step, I think we all know how to accidentally ruin woven fabric, but in case you need a refresher, you're just going to take your fingernails and brush across the edges to kind of release a bit of the fabric like that and just rough it up. You can take it and go sideways, so it's like we're getting onto the bias, because we did cut this as a circle, so there are some spots that are going to look better than others. And another thing you could do if you really wanted to is, before you put it in the hoop, you could have taken it to a sewing machine and done a little stitch along the edge just to make sure that it doesn't go beyond that. But again, this is all stuck inside the hoop, so you shouldn't have to worry about it. Now, this is also the point where if you wanted to, you'd be like, well, you know, it's centered here, but there's a little too much fray, like here, like the little extra fabric versus that. You could also just at this point go, you know what, I'm gonna trim it down and then I will fray it a little bit more. So I'm gonna do that. I just like doing this live. Clearly you can tell that I'm used to live streaming this stuff and narrating all of my mistakes. I'm cool with that, as long as everybody else is. Okay, I'm gonna go around a little bit more. I like it would be just my luck to accidentally snip everything right now and have to redo all of the bow. But I'm not gonna do that. Not today. Not today, Satan. Okay, so I've trimmed it down. I'll take all that fabric, move that, and again, rough up those edges. Make it look like it's seen some stuff. And another thing you could do if you really wanted to is you could dip this in tea If you boil a bag of tea, you could dip it in that to give it like an aged look. But now it looks like a nice rustic son of a nutcracker ornament. Thank you so much for paying attention. Please let me know if you make one of these, or if you have any questions, comments, anything, leave it down below. I do like to go through comments on my YouTube channel and just make sure that everybody gets the same amount of attention that I personally crave on the regular.